So welcome everybody. Lovely to see people, familiar faces and unfamiliar faces. It's great to see you here. I'm Doro Marden and I'm a trustee of Primrose Hill Community Association and also a long-time member of the planning group for Transition Primrose Hill. And the idea for this came originally from work done through the Think and Do shop that was on Kentish Town High Road, and there was an idea about doing rewilding, and Transition Kentish Town did rewilding on the Raglan estate, and they planted wildflower turf and some native hedging, and we started talking about trying to do something similar at Primrose Hill Court. And we just started, we'd had one meeting with people from the council, and then lockdown happened. So everything, all of that is on hold really. But as part of that, we had the idea of including some of the people who had gardens around about to see if they could be involved in making the whole area a bit more biodiverse. And now we've branched out to, well, all over Primrose Hill and beyond. It would be great if you would like to put in the chat where you are and how you heard about us, because it's always useful to know that. So do stick it in the chat. We do these talks for free, but your community association, like many local charities, is suffering during lockdown, and there is a donate button which will be put in the chat, and any donation, large or small, is very welcome. Thank you. As we know, so many species are on the verge of extinction, and insect populations in particular have plummeted. And gardens are perhaps one of these places where this decline can be stopped and reversed. And I'm keen also to see how we can access some of the communal gardens and bits of land, you know, maybe wildflower turf on the Thames Reservoir site perhaps, or has anyone heard of Miyawaki forests? Something in the Camden New Journal about a couple of weeks ago. Could we help hedgehogs? You know, there's sort of some ideas which I'm looking forward to hearing from other people. We're delighted to welcome our speakers. Katherine Barwood, who has a roof garden in the middle of Primrose Hill and is a distinguished garden writer, and her latest book is on houseplants, of course available at your local bookshop. And Rosie Hunt, who's a garden design graduate from Kew, also did a master's in garden history and is a past chair of Hampstead Garden Society, and she gardens in King Henry's Road and also the Adelaide Community Gardens. So they are going to talk for a little while about how they encourage biodiversity in their gardens, and then we're throwing it open for others to ask questions and make suggestions. You can ask questions in the chat, or you can put up your hand, literally, or under the reactions. It's under the reactions button. There's a place where you can virtually put your hand up. I should say, and Tim there is the chair of the events committee who's helping co-host and see when people are waving their hands. I should say that we do normally record, or we are recording this evening. So if you don't want to appear, you can turn your video off or change your name and be careful, but we are going to record it, and then it'll be available on our YouTube channel. Great. So Katherine, I think you're the first. I'm handing over to you.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Doro, for that introduction. And can I just say I've got one of those complicated names, double-barreled names sometimes, that I'm Horwood Barwise, and you managed to put them together beautifully in a way that nobody's ever done before. But no, that's fine. So it is Horwood. It is Horwood the name that I write under, and I think that you've asked me here this evening because we're sort of starting with the smallest garden probably. Because I live in the heart of Primrose Hill, and I've got a south-facing roof garden. It's actually five floors up, and I mean I've gardened in many gardens, And I have to say, it's not so different from gardening on the ground, except obviously I have to grow everything in window boxes, troughs and pots. So because of that, you might think that it's actually quite difficult for me to do anything to help with biodiversity in such a sort of small, relatively controlled area. But actually there is. And first of all, just let me tell you what I can't do. I can't let my non-existent grass grow long, as Monty Don was urging us to do recently. I can't have a wildflower meadow, much as I'd like to. I can't have a pond to encourage wildlife such as frogs and toads, although I do have a small one for insects and birds. And I do draw the line at the butterfly's favourite food, nettles, in my small space. But that doesn't mean that I can't give bees, butterflies, birds, the 3 Bs, we all associate with a 4th B, biodiversity, some of what they need. And the 3 things they need are water, food and shelter. And there is, I have to say, there's a lot to learn, as we all know, and I hope I'm not sort of, I'm to a certain extent preaching to the converted, I know, but we all have so much to learn about gardening for wildlife. I mean, I didn't know that butterflies need water. They can't eat, they can only drink. So they need a supply of water as well as nectar-rich flowers. We all know that bees need pollen, but it isn't just a question of growing a variety of flowers, although that helps. It's about making it as easy as possible for the bees to find the nectar. And because of this, I now grow far more single flowers than double ones, to make it easier for them to find and extract the nectar. And these are just a few that I grow. Varieties of Verbena bonariensis, sedums, valerian, oreganum, lavender, the short buzz series of buddleias, not the ones from over the railway line. And I grow climbing plants, particularly single-flowered clematis and roses, and also some honeysuckle. Now the list goes on and on of pollinator friendly and nectar rich plants that can be grown in pots. And I'm very happy to pass on some suggestions after this evening if any would like some. As well as changing my planting, I've put up hotels for solitary bees. I bought mine, but they are easily made. Solitary bees love sun, and I've got plenty of that, I promise you. But shelter doesn't have to be prefabricated. It can be living as well. It can just be a thickly planted area left undisturbed. Nesting boxes for birds, though that is somewhat challenging, being so high up. But, you know, as I said, I've got some sheltered corners up here. I don't use pesticide sprays, of course, not just for the obvious reasons, but because I want to provide food for birds and ladybirds. So I have to say I don't get disheartened when I see aphids, because I know if I wait long enough, the ladybirds will come. I don't cut back seed-bearing plants too quickly. And I don't light up my garden at night, because this can be disturbing for birds. I do compost, even on a roof garden, in a mini hot bin, which can get up to 40 degrees. I mulch, and of course I don't use peat. Basically, I hope I'm making a small contribution to the pollinating corridors around Primrose Hill. It really isn't difficult to provide these 3 things: food, water, and shelter. I may not be able to do all these in abundance like some of you with bigger gardens, but I hope what I've just said shows that there is a lot you can do even if you've just got a window box or two and a bowl of water, just remember that variety and tolerance are key. Thank you.
Thank you. Really, really interesting and very encouraging to think that, you know, however small our space, because I only have a roof terrace, much smaller than yours, and to think, you know, to know that things can be done which make a difference.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great. Rosie, shall I pass over to you, and then we'll have questions after that?
Yes, okay, sure. Well, good evening to all my Primrose Hill friends and neighbours. I live in King Henry's Road, and I have been visited by many bees and birds over the winter because of the plants I've been growing in my front garden, which faces south. I have with me some samples of the plants I particularly want to talk about. One is Lonicera fragrantissima, which I've got these few bits off the big bush growing in my garden. See the little white flowers? That's Lonicera fragrantissima. And here I have the Christmas rose, which is Helleborus niger. Okay, I'm sure you all know that. And here I have another sort of Hellebore, which I have in my back garden, which I think is the Lenten. I think it's called the Lenten rose. We will talk about that in a minute. Right. Lonicera fragrantissima is a fragrant winter flowering honeysuckle native to China. It's deciduous, so it loses all leaves in the autumn, and then fresh new foliage appears in the spring. This wonderful shrub produces fragrant, creamy white flowers between December and March. People passing by stop in the street to smell it, and some are even bold enough to pick a small piece and take it home with them. This year, the Lonicera fragrantissima has bloomed better than ever. Bees have been all over it all winter. Bumblebees, some very large, honeybees, etc. And small birds have been gathering and socializing in the top branches and twittering away, which drives my cat mad. I hang a bird feeder and a coconut feeder on the branches to encourage them. I've not seen any bugs, but there is a mouse living in the lower branches. I know this because my neighbour's cat spends time searching for it most days, and I do see it myself sometimes. There are other fragrant winter flowering shrubs such as Daphne and Viburnum, although in my experience, they are not as lovely as Lonicera fragrantissima. Also in my front garden and on my balcony this winter, I have been growing Helleborus niger, sometimes called the Christmas rose. Last winter, I planted a dozen of these by the pathway leading to my front door. They bloomed very well, and I was meaning to move them and replace them with another plant for the summer. However, I was very busy and did not get to do this. Then I noticed to my surprise that these Helleborus niger were throwing out new shoots and blooming in the summer as well. I was so pleased that I bought some more, and in the autumn I planted them on my south-facing balcony, where they have bloomed all winter, absolutely surrounded with bees. I'm now going to wait to see if these bloom during the summer as well, before moving them again. In my back garden, which faces north, there is not so much sun. However, Lonicera fragrantissima also grows there, although it does not flower so profusely. However, what does grow well is a different variety of Hellebore, which I think is called the Lenten rose. One of these plants, which is this one, which I showed you, has now formed a fairly large clump, and it was blown about last summer by all the winds we've been experiencing this year. These winds occurred just at the right time and blew all the hellebore seeds off my plants, resulting in possibly up to 100 little seedlings, which I now have to pot up when I can find the time. There are lots of small birds in the back garden. I put out a bird feeder to encourage them here too, although this unfortunately sometimes attracts some local squirrels, which my cat has to chase off. Returning to the subject of bees, there are some in the back garden too. What really amazed me though was a couple of years ago, bumblebees were nesting in a hole in a flower bed. It was really lovely to see them, and I made sure not to plant anything near the nest. Unfortunately, they're no longer there. However, with the right plants growing in my garden, maybe they'll come back again. One last thing I wanted to say, I have a bee hotel on the fence in the front and the back garden. I think this is very welcoming for the bees and maybe the bugs too.
Fantastic, thank you. Really good to actually be able to see the plants. It's lovely, thank you. And you know, the more we can do for bees, as both of you were saying, the better, which is really good. So I wanted to say that any questions are very welcome, and we've had one in the chat, which is, hello, we live facing the railway like you. We've tried to use bird feeders because we hear lots of songbirds, but all we seem to attract is pigeons. Any ideas how we can attract small birds and not pigeons?
Difficult because I used to attract pigeons, but then my neighbour got so upset because they were defecating in her garden that I had to reduce the amount of bird food that I put out. Fortunately, the pigeons don't seem to come anymore. As I say, it's the squirrels that are a problem, but I do get the little birds in my gardens, you know, the wrens and the tits, the blue tits and the robins. But I haven't seen many pigeons. I suppose occasionally, but they don't seem to come so much anymore.
I think that's because they're all down my end of King Henry's Road, Rosie.
Do you have any advice, Catherine?
Well, I've had the same problem as Ted and Kat, I have to say. We have quite a colony. There's a courtyard behind our block, and it's just become a colony of pigeons, and no matter what's put up, they're there. They're part of us. So, and obviously I want to feed the birds, the smaller birds and the songbirds. So I have tried, you can get various feeders that have a cage around them. I mean, they're obviously designed, but they're more designed for squirrels than they are for birds. But they do stop the pigeons getting to the bird seed, to the food. There are various different types depending on what sort of feed you want to put out there. I mean, the only problem is that birds are messy when they're picking at the seed. The seed lands on the ground, and that's where the pigeons come and pick it up. So I am afraid, I mean, like Rosie, I have given up actually putting out, bought seed for birds, and I'm concentrating more on having the sort of plants. Growing the sort of plants, having seed heads, that sort of thing, that the birds can feed on. And I mean, also, you've just got to sort of pick and choose. But you know, things like coconut shells with fat inside them are less likely. A pigeon isn't going to be able to get at that. It's a balancing act. It's a balance. We've all got to live together in Primrose Hill, even the pigeons.
Yeah. So I've had another question from Alice. Is there any plant or seedling swapping in Primrose Hill? And I think I would answer that certainly Transition Primrose Hill in the past has done both seed and seedling swapping. And Liz, I think you helped with that, didn't you? Is Liz here? Yes.
Yes.
Do you want to say anything?
Well, I'd love to say lots of things from what has already been said. I've just put something in the chat, which to say that I have, after a lifetime in Primrose Hill, really most of a lifetime, I've recently moved to a flat, but with quite a big garden actually, between Belsize Park and Gospel Oak, so I'm not that far away. And I suddenly have a lot more space. And, you know, my experience in my back garden, and relative to what's already been said, is it's very difficult, isn't it? The whole business of I have a number of bird feeders, and I feel very much that I'm visited by all the things that some people regard as pests, like huge numbers of pigeons. I also have cats that don't seem to do much in the way of frightening, and not to mention squirrels. I have huge numbers of squirrels because my flat garden backs onto the railway line. But I would just add to anybody who's got space, I mean, if you can, I want to learn about bee hotels, because I have never done that, and was thinking about a nesting box, which I've never done before either, and was interested to know if anybody else, you know, has advice about what kind. But meanwhile, I mean, I also grow now, of course, quite a number of the things that have been mentioned. I'm very keen to know how anybody makes a small pond. But back to it, you were up to seedling swapping and so on. I mean,
yes, I've put in the chat. I think we will try and do another seed and seedling swap outside the library.
Yeah, that's right, because
I've seen it somewhere else. Even during lockdown, you can put it out with notices and keep well away from it. And I think we should definitely try and do that.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
I've got tomatoes beginning to seedling.
Yeah, mine too. Yes, too, and a series of herbs actually.
Yeah.
And so
someone else has asked.
Broad beans. So far.
Someone else has asked, would you happen to know of a local gardeners chat group? Now, Catherine, I think you did actually have a next door group, didn't you, Catherine?
I did at the beginning of the first lockdown. That it wasn't very active, so I'm sad to say, but it was helpful because we were able to give advice to each other and advice about vegetables and things like that, to where to get compost. I mean, it was so difficult in those first few months to actually get hold of things, and things have changed. I mean, there isn't, as far as I know, there isn't a list, any sort of a chat group. But I think, I mean, there is, if anybody is on, this isn't a local group, but just if you want good advice, I can suggest, if you're on Facebook, Gardening Witch. You don't have to be a member of Gardening Witch, though I do advise you to be a member because they have terrific advice. But there is a very good group on there, and you literally just put a question up there, put a photograph of something, you don't know what it is, and within minutes you'll get some really helpful answers from other gardeners. So that's the Gardening Witch group. But I think, yes, if you're not on Facebook, then maybe we should, after this evening, we could start a WhatsApp group for Primrose Hill gardeners.
Yeah,
great.
Nice idea.
Yeah.
A good idea. And Melanie, I think you had your hand up. Can you unmute?
Oh yes, I just wanted to, I put it in the chat, but I made a pond using a black plastic half barrel, which I sunk in the ground. It's about 2 feet across, and I filled it with water. So the edge of the barrel is the level of the soil. And I added, got some pondweed from my cousin's pond and some snails. And now I have my first frog living there.
Ooh, how exciting.
Yes. I'm very excited.
Yes. And I know Miranda, are you there, Miranda? I know you've put in ponds and have newts. Is that right?
Hi, yeah, that's right. Plenty going on in my pond, and I'm a bit hemmed in the back garden though, because there's astroturf on the gardens on both sides. So I don't know how much I want to encourage the amphibians, because they've got nowhere to escape to. Catherine will know, because she looks down on my garden.
Yes.
Astroturf either side. So, but I do love the pond. I do also have a pond on the allotment, but the allotment is a whole other story, because it's been closed down because the soil is poisoned. So it's a bit of a nightmare, actually. That's in Belsize Park.
Oh, gosh. So, Jeff, I see you're here. Nice to see you. And Jeff is involved with the Adelaide Road, the Adelaide Community Gardens, and also with the Nature Reserve, and has been liaising with HS2 about what's going on with the trees there. So I don't know if that's what you wanted to talk about, but it would be useful to know.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Good. Well, I was going to ask if anybody's got any frogs for the for our ponds at the community garden. We've got a very big pond now, but 12 years ago, all our many hundreds of frogs all died because of a strange frog disease, and we've now only got one frog after 12 years, and as you might imagine, you don't get much frog spawn out of one frog. And in fact, I kind of I sympathize with him. I think he's lonely. but I don't want him to do anything naughty, so I would like some frog spawn. Although if anybody comes across a frog or a toad or some newts, they do. But it is frog spawn time, and I thought it might come to me rather than me go to it. So
yes, in fact, I see in the chat that Line has said that she might have some tadpoles soon.
Oh.
Wow! Thank you, Line. I know Line has donated all her hornwort, which is a oxygenating pondweed. So I have a sort of we have an agreement, so I know where she is. But she's got my email address, so I'm sure she'll let me know when it's ready, when they're ready.
Oh, there's another offer come through as well from the city farm.
Oh, great! Well, I was there the other day because I was investigating manure for my plots at Adelaide Community Garden, where we might have some spare plots, but not immediately, but after lockdown. And anybody wants to do a little bit of serious gardening on a very seriously small plot might want to get in touch with myself or Rosie. We do need help maintaining the garden, so hopefully it's somebody who likes digging.
Great. Well, I should say that we always send a resource list out after one of these events, and so we'll definitely put the contacts for Adelaide Community Garden in, and if anybody else has got anything else that they would like to spread out around everybody else, let us know at the Community Association, and we'll make sure it's put on the list.
Doro, can I just answer a question which is about to disappear from Caroline about lights in the garden?
Yes,
because she says she's concerned because she's got her Christmas white fairy lights still up, and I don't blame her. We all need some twinkles, don't we, in our lives? And they're on a timer and they go off at midnight. That's fine. That's fine. It's just, you know, it's glaring lights, it's much brighter lights and lights that stay on, you know, particularly from businesses and things like that who should know better. But fairy lights are fine. I don't think that'll be a problem.
Great. Great. So Peter, I know you had an idea about, Peter Darley, you had an idea about hedgehogs, perhaps.
Well, I think it's quite an ambitious objective, really. We've got the Adelaide Nature Reserve. We've got the land at the top of the portals in Primrose Hill. We've got lots of gardens in King Henry's Road. We've got the gardens at the back of where we are in Oppidan's Road. And if all these spaces could somehow be linked together and allow hedgehogs to move, I think we would have the possibility of creating something fairly exceptional. But it needs a lot of work and it needs a lot of cooperation. It probably needs not too many small dogs. I can imagine it's not the easiest thing to achieve, but yes, I mean, I would love to see some hedgehogs, or not necessarily even see them, just be aware of them.
Yes. Melanie, you've got your hand up, and then Jeff. Jeff, you've still got your hand up. Does that mean you want to talk?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, well, Melanie first and then Jeff.
Okay. No, I just wondered, you know, the idea, wonderful idea about hedgehogs. Where I live, my garden backs onto the Barrow Hill Reservoir, which is owned by Thames Water. And this reservoir is a big green grassy slope. It's huge, it's huge. And I don't see why we couldn't have some hedgehogs there. If we could get the Thames Water to be cooperative and find out what hedgehogs need in the way of habitat. That place is completely fenced, so no dogs or people could get in there, but there are slots in the fence so they could move into Primrose Hill and into the gardens. So anyhow, it's a suggestion. If anyone has any contacts with Thames Water, knows how to persuade them to be cooperative, I think it would be a possibility.
We have in fact been talking to Thames Water about Barrow Hill Reservoir.
Oh, good.
With a view to populating it with primroses. It just seems very unfortunate that Primrose Hill has no primroses any longer. And it seems to me the slopes of the reservoir would be ideal for a colony of primroses. Now, hedgehogs are a different matter, obviously, because they obviously need hiding places and so on. But so you'd have to link the two with Primrose Hill and maybe, yeah. But yes, we are in some contact with Thames Water, and they sort of, in principle, quite amenable to the idea of primroses anyway. We haven't spoken about hedgehogs.
Great. In fact, I wonder whether wildflower turf would be a possibility as well. That would be lovely. You know, there's plenty of room there for primroses and everything else. I don't know if anybody saw the Camden New Journal article about Miyawaki Forest, but there's a group that has planted one on the Thames Water site up towards Highgate. Wow. So they must have got permission to do it. So another thing to think about. Jeff, should we go to you and then Line?
Hedgehogs. Yes, Camden's nature conservation officer, whose name is Greg, is actually embarked in a project with London Zoo to instigate more hedgehog colonies in Camden. Barrow Hill is actually in Westminster, I think.
No, it's Camden.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, Camden. Oh, you're right. Yes, you're absolutely right. Well, I think the significant thing is that London Zoo, the car park in London Zoo, is the only hedgehog colony in central London. So there's an enormous reservoir of hedgehogs there. The problem is that hedgehogs need an enormous range to, otherwise they don't like it. They get cross with each other and get ill. Mrs. Tiggywinkle, about 20 years ago, wouldn't give any hedgehogs to the Adelaide Community Garden because we didn't have a big enough range, even though we've connected to quite a sizable back garden area within a block, you know, behind the hotel on near England's Lane. So that wasn't sufficient. But I think, as I agree with Peter, that we're looking to the Adelaide Nature Reserve and the area that the trees over the portal and the HS2 site. It's all part of what's called a site of importance for nature conservation. And I think there's 4 of them in Camden that aren't within the Royal Parks. But unfortunately, as you've probably seen, HS2 have chopped down all the woodland, which we're arguing against, or we're arguing anyway about that. But there's another nature reserve near Highgate Hill, Highgate West Road, is it, and Gordon House Road, opposite the south entrance to the to Parliament Hill. That is a nature reserve. It's another site of importance for nature conservation with all sorts of restricted covenants on it, and that's being sold for development. So what I'm trying to drive at is that what you see in your back gardens, there are reservoirs in various places, apart from Hampstead Heath and Regent's Park, where wildlife but biodiversity can kind of regenerate, and they're diminishing. Even though Camden's got a biodiversity strategy, which I have to say is being rewritten at the moment, there is insufficient diminishing stock of space, but space needs some voluntary help to actually maintain it. So and as people,
Jeff, can I just interrupt you for a minute? Would it be useful to try? For us to get the details of the Camden or the London. Is it London Zoo or Camden who's looking for hedgehog space?
Do it through Greg Hitchcock.
Greg Hitchcock. Okay.
He's Camden's Nature Conservation Officer.
Great.
Yes.
So can we move on to line? I'm sure we'll come back to you, Jeff.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Just very quickly, also on hedgehogs, I think Jeff's nearly answered it. I contacted the Hedgehog Whatever Society about 20 years ago, I think, when I had some friendly neighbours and we were going to make a little hole in our garden walls. And they insisted that you needed a row of about 20 back gardens or something. Just 3 or 4, which is all I'd achieved, wasn't going to be enough. And I think everybody's paved over now, so I've given up. Thank you.
Interesting.
Bad.
Good. Anybody else got their hands up? Anybody else want to say something? Are there any more comments, questions? Mickey. Hi, Mickey. Can't hear you.
Yeah, of course. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hello, Mickey.
Okay, great. Yeah, okay. Hi. So I'm not in the Primrose Hill area, but in South End Green near the Hampstead Heath Station area. And we have formed, regarding a hedgehog, we have formed a group, local group. And it's been having a meeting monthly. And not recently because it's been a winter. So I just wanted to tell that if we like to proceed, of this hedgehog idea to get them around in our streets and gardens, we have researched some, garden walls to put the tunnels, and then how much that would cost, and then how ideal the size is. So if any opportunities that cost effectively, if we could put anything that is in sort of communities scale, I think we could collaborate each other with the if you get this sort of a group of the hedgehog activity. So that's what I wanted to say.
Oh, great. It sounds like you've got a bit of a way along, and you probably have got 20 gardens, haven't you?
I think, yes, it is. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
and near the heath as well. So
near the heath,
yeah.
yes, very near the heath. So it's a very related to the biodiversity corridor as well. Sort of having all those animals and insects coming and going from the heath, and very related to that. Yes.
Great. I wondered if anybody had any other ideas of communal spaces that we could think about, you know, putting wildflower turf, or, I mean, because the Raglan estate wildflower turf came from a very good source and has done really well. So, you know, I'm sure we could crowdfund and get some if we could think of, you know, if there were places that we would be able to put it. I mean, one of the ones I was thinking was that triangle that was mashed, you know, down by Darwin Court.
Yeah.
Because at one point we were looking at whether we could plant trees on it. I think, Melanie, you were involved, weren't you? But
yeah,
actually,
that's right.
We did a design for it.
We did a design for it, but it's actually got concrete underneath. So it's difficult, would be difficult to plant anything with long roots, but maybe we could put some wildflower turf there and some native hedging. Or something. Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah. Yeah.
It's an HS2 site, actually.
What, that triangle?
It's now a compound, yeah.
The triangle with grass,
Well,
which is by...
It hasn't got the hoarding up yet, but very shortly it will have.
How depressing.
Yes.
How depressing. I was hoping Annabelle Leventon might be here, who's from Darwin Court, but I
no,
can't.
She's contacted me to raise, because I sit on the HS2 community, Euston Community Representatives Group meeting for Primrose Hill. So I kind of pass on the queries. But yes, there is a query from somebody that also is on this HS2 group, who lives in Primrose Hill, who possibly isn't here at the moment, who lives in King Hayman's Road, and he's queried that triangle of land over the tunnels, just further towards Camden town, from the area that you're talking about, that had the cherry tree chopped down.
Where they chopped the cherry tree down.
And he queried, why can't that be done up? Well, I don't think you can plant some trees there. I think Camden planted some cherry trees a couple of yards away from that on their bit of pavement.
Yes.
But I think you might want to take on Network Rail, who actually are the arch criminal in all this, in my view, because they chop the trees down.
Yeah.
So, but you might want to take them on. They're the hidden, the unseen hand behind HS2 regarding the chopping of the trees down on the nature reserve.
Yes, awful, isn't it? Yeah. Line, have you got your hand up because you want to say something else, please? Great.
There's a curious thing at the mouth of Fitzroy Road, just near me, over an old electricity substation, a raised concrete thing with flowers in, which was being gardened by a butterfly man.
That's right, Jim.
I don't know who he is, or is he here, or what's
Yes, he lived in Oldfield, and I wonder whether he's still with us. I can check.
Yes, because that's about 4 square meters or something of raised flower bed.
Could be planted, couldn't it? Yes.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah. Is Anna here? Oh yes, you are here, Anna. So Anna Locke, who is not a Primrose Hill person now, but used to be, and did lots of planting and seedlings and growing and so on, is down in Hastings, and she's written a book about gardens, and I just wanted her to say a couple of words. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah,
I've know quite a few people here.
Well, I do, and I've been listening in, and it's really making me nostalgic to hear about people like the Butterfly Man, but also to see Mickey and Melanie and various faces. Yeah, so Doro's very kindly asked me just to mention, because I've actually just written a book, And it's really about this. It's taking a permaculture perspective, and it's about taking an ecosystem approach to gardening. But it is also about all these small changes that you've all been talking about, like the seed heads and growing pollinator plants. It's kind of like edible gardening and nature gardening all rolled into one. Particularly about small gardens. So I was very interested to listen about the roof garden. I've obviously seen Doro's roof garden, and I think it's just amazing what we can all do, particularly in an urban situation, and take this approach where we're growing for nature as well as growing for ourselves. So anyway, I've written a book, and
tell us the name.
Oh yeah, it's called The Forager's Garden. And it's grow an edible sanctuary in your own backyard. So this edible sanctuary is really this thing about combining low maintenance food growing. And obviously, you know, it's growing forage for us, a human scale foraging system, but it's also growing forage for bees and local insects, and, you know, having this awareness of animals and other creatures that also live in our gardens. So hopefully, yes, my publisher is Permanent Publications, and it's actually, you can pre-order, but it's actually out in 2 weeks' time. So Doro has persuaded me to come along and mention it.
Well, I've read it online, and it's great. So
thank you.
So
yeah,
we look forward to seeing it. Maybe when we could all meet, we could have a talk in the library. That would
oh,
be
I'd love to. Yeah, and it was so nice to listen to you all talking about your gardens and remembering Primrose Hill and seeing some lovely faces.
Your launch.
Everything's on Zoom these days.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, let's.
Doro, can I ask?
Yes.
I just put on the chat, but I know it's difficult to read all that. I just wondered if anyone else was on the Capital Growth mailing list, which is something that I seem to have joined, which has been terrific in the lockdown, because I used to volunteer for quite a stretch with, I suppose, the people after you, Anna, with Susanna Hall, who works at Cecil Sharp House, you know, in the Cecil Sharp House garden.
Yes, yeah.
I've done a certain amount of work with her, and that sort of, which I'm sure you were probably, you know, the starting point, and maybe worked with Susanna. But
yeah.
we did a terrific presentation about 10 days ago about permaculture and how, you know, explaining about forest gardens, and I'm at that point where I've got this sort of rather large garden where I feel I've got sort of halfway to a forest garden, really. But I just wanted very much to recommend anybody who is interested in growing stuff to be in touch with Capital Growth, because it's a wider London thing than just Primrose Hill, but there's all sorts of, you know, terrific information and presentations and things like that I think people would be interested in and find helpful, perhaps. Did anybody come back to me on a bee hotel, which was mentioned early on? How do I make a bee hotel? What's the best?
No, you can buy, can I just say, you can send for one from Amazon.
Oh.
No. So there must be people who made them. Catherine, you're on mute.
Yes, I'm unmuting myself. There are also online, there are other places to get bee hotels, but there are also plenty of instructions as well. Basically, what you're trying to do is to create lots of long tubes for the bees to be able to disappear into hollow tubes.
Things with hollow trunks, you know, things like
exactly. So I mean, if you've got a Black & Decker, there are other drills, of course, but if you've got a Black & Decker and a piece of wood, you could do it by drilling holes into that, or you know, things like bamboo stems, which are hollow. Quite a lot of people just sort of collect it. They chop them up and collect them, tie them up together. So they are very easy. They're very easy to make.
I see Monica has put something in the chat about how to do it.
Yes, short bamboo sticks bound with string. That's
Online says short bamboo sticks lined with string. And a thank you to David, who's giving lots of things which we'll put in the resource list. So RSPB stuff, and yeah, we'll definitely pull them together to put on the resource list. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything, David? Are you there? Are you there? Can't see you. Just wanted to see if there was anybody there. No. Maureen.
Just about the trees that people have been growing things under trees, like Shelcott Square, and we should encourage more people to do that, because King Henry's Road, there's usually all the hollyhocks along there, and it's just such an easy thing to do. If you've got a tree outside your house with earth in it, just put in some seeds and they just sort of seem to take off. And outside Pauline Bain's house one day, there was suddenly this sunflower appeared, and then it grew and grew, and it was just one right next to a tree. It's lovely. So that's an idea for people.
Great, a bit of guerrilla gardening.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I was inspired by Miranda. I think she's not Miranda Glossop. I think she's not with us anymore, but she's done terrific things in King Henry's Road. There, just to warn you that there's quite often, obviously, whatever is round the tree is going to be pretty rough. You need to be prepared to put quite a lot of compost around there, keep filling it up. You've got to beware of dog owners who are very territorial. Actually, I don't know if it's the dogs or the dog owners who are territorial, but, you know, but I've had a lot of problems where I've been trying to do a bit of planting around a tree with one particular owner who sort of claims it as his own. But I think if you can build up, you know, quite a group of plants, then they're less likely to be dug up, and people are less likely to chuck cans and old coffee cups on it, hopefully. So great idea. Yes, please do it.
Great. Jojo, I see you've got your hand up.
Hi, sorry, my camera's not working properly at the moment, so sorry you can't see me. Just going back to bee hotels for a second. I've made a lot of them in my time, which has been a great lot of trial and error. Just a couple of things. I've mostly used bamboo like twigs that I've tied together. It's useful if you are doing that, if you can waterproof them in some sort of way, because the bamboo, the like pulp inside can, in the rain, it can sort of, I want to say, like reinflate and close them up again. That happened to me with a bunch of them once. So I took up cutting in half plastic bottles, old ones, and putting them in there, and that worked quite well. It's also, there's quite a few studies. It's not necessarily confirmed yet, but it's theorized that someone said they do need to be a certain length. A lot of the bee hotels you buy online and places are very short, and that doesn't give them enough space, because most species of bees that use them lay multiple eggs in compartments in one tube, and that they need a certain length to be able to do that. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I do know it. I have it somewhere, which I'd be happy to share. But yeah, I've had a lot of trial and error with that, so I'm happy to help anyone that does want to make their own.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So Monica says, I work at the NHM. Tell me what the NHM is. Monica?
Apologies. That's the Natural History Museum.
Oh, the Natural History Museum, of course. Of course.
Nice to see you.
So there's lots of information on their website, are you saying?
Yeah, practical information. Also what you maybe can do with like your grandkids or just do it yourself. And yeah, it's really practical information, like step by step, even with videos. So yeah. Thank you.
That's good to know. I see Line has put St Mark's Church Garden. So I was hoping that Laura, who gardens there, would be on this call, but I don't think you are, Laura. Can't see you. But that's certainly one of the areas in Primrose Hill, and it's possible that we could discuss putting more pollinator plants there and so on. I mean, it's already quite good, I think, but it would be good to talk about what could be done there. Anything else? Any other ideas which people have?
I've just put in.
Yeah. Yes.
I've just put into the chat that Transition Kentish Town were recently, I mean, they've done it over a period of time, but have been giving away little tree, tiny tree whips, and are keen to build up this great Camden forest.
Yes, that was a thing.
Anybody who's looking for a free tiny tree, I planted one last year, and I must say it's not grown a lot yet, but they may still be, for people who like a little tree to try somewhere. That was a very nice thing, I thought. Helen,
I see you had your hand up.
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just going back to birds, if you get some rather expensive bird seed, then the husks have all been taken off, so you don't get the husks dropping underneath the bird feeder, which is a help, because then the pigeons don't come so much. But I do find where I am that I have to have the squirrel-proof ones, because otherwise the squirrels just come and take all the bird seed. I mean, there are lots of birds who come, everything from long-tailed tits to goldfinch and tits, lovely. Ducks and all sorts come. It's well worth putting up some bird feeders.
Great. Peter, are you on birds or are you moving us on?
I wanted to add a little bit to what I've just been hearing about bird feeders, because I think probably over the whole of the pandemic, I've been fighting a battle against squirrels. The squirrels jump onto the bird feeders, which eventually I bought one of these sort of column ones, which can take 4 bird feeders, and tried to position it where no squirrels could get it. But when the squirrels jump, they actually destroy quite a lot of branches from which they've just jumped, which is was starting to really annoy me. Anyway, to go on to the sort of the type of bird feed, I think this sunflower dehusked sunflower seed is what they really love, but it's also what parakeets love. And we get an enormous number of parakeets, and they're very clumsy feeders. So the parakeets attract the squirrels and the pigeons who forage underneath. We do get all the, we had some goldfinches, and we often used to get a woodpecker, and so there's quite a lot of birds around, but it's a constant battle to try to achieve a proper balance.
Absolutely, but the process is part of the fun, isn't it?
Oh, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, no, it's we spend our time watching it. Yeah.
Jojo, have you got your hand up again? Hello, Jojo. Is your hand still up?
No, sorry, I didn't mean to put my hand up. I'm not sure if I pressed something. Sorry.
Like it's up. Good, good. So
can I just can I answer Caroline's query about kittens? First of all, can I say lucky you to be getting 2 kittens? But you're nervous about the birds. I think absolutely the very best thing is to get collars with bells on. I mean, they have been shown to work. Kittens will be very stealth-like, but get big bells around their necks. I think that's going to be your answer.
I've put off getting them for years, and it's only lockdown that's made me decide to get them. And lucky I can afford them. I've resorted to Gumtree.
Oh,
they cost quite a few theatre tickets, these kittens. You can't get ordinary little moggies anymore.
No.
I read somewhere that actually one of the things that helps is giving them expensive cat food, because if they're fed high protein, they're less likely to hunt. So,
and apparently
yes.
They need 15 minutes of wild activity a day, and you've got to, it's like us, you make sure they do it. And apparently if they've done 15 minutes of wild play, then they've, as it were, had their exercise.
And they're not getting much birds, we hope.
But can I also say on bird feeders, I've taken mine out of the garden. I've got things, I'm up on the 1st floor now, I've got bird feeders back and front, 1st floor level, including on my bedroom window. I can stay in bed and see the goldfinches. It's wonderful. So if you can put bird feeders up high, they'll come up to your 1st floor, and no squirrels.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I'm just saying to 373147, hello, do email PHCA WhatsApp group. So, you know, if we had a WhatsApp group for people who are interested in wilding issues, that would be really, really interesting. And so we'll have everybody's email addresses. So it means we'll email a resources list, and we can invite people to say if they're interested. So that would be a really good outcome of this.
Very good.
Of this time.
Yeah.
Maury?
There was just someone asked how they can join the association, the Primrose Hill Association. So that can go in the email as well.
The email as well, absolutely. Yeah. Great. So Rosie, is there anything else that you'd like to add that has come up for you during the session?
Yes, somebody just mentioned transition somewhere. I can't remember where it was, but there is a transition, Primrose Hill, isn't there?
Indeed, yes.
Where they put some quite large pots outside the shops and have small trees growing out of them.
Yes,
I think that's excellent. I really do. Very
well. Again, if anybody wants to help with those, they'd be very welcome. And
you're something to do with it, are you?
Yes, absolutely.
Laura's work.
yes. And they're all getting a bit big for their pots at the moment. So you know they probably need another go. And in fact, the big quince tree that was outside what used to be Press and is now Reenie's, the ice cream shop, is now outside St George's Terrace Gardens, and we're looking at whether we can replant it in there. So you know, part of it is trying to find somewhere to put some of these trees when we take them out, rather than chucking them, which you would, you know. Yeah, but again, if anybody's interested in helping, that would be really good. Thank you. Good. Well, are we slowing down? Are there any more questions or comments?
Hi, Doro, it's Nicole.
Oh, Nicole, hi.
I just wanted to note and mention the man who lives just across the road from Nicholson's. I've forgotten his name. He's a Japanese man, and he has the whole corner full of pots.
Yozo, yes.
Yes, thank you. Yes. I just wanted to mention him here because he hasn't had a mention, and I think he should have. He's very inspiring, and his plants are a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. Well, next time I see him, I'll tell him he was mentioned.
Yeah.
He also picks up rubbish on Primrose Hill.
Yes,
And,
I've seen him. I've actually thanked him the other day. I stopped and talked to him outside his shop. It's just, you know, if we all did that, this place would be a jungle.
Great. Any other comments that people want to make? No? Great. Well, I think I will say thank you very much to Catherine and to Rosie. It was really helpful to have that input and to see the plants that you know, I'm not saying we should be planting, but we could be planting. And great to have so many people here. And we will definitely be in touch. And a WhatsApp group, as I said, would be a great outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for organising it.
Thank you.
A reminder about the donations. You can go on the Community Association website and make a donation if you enjoyed it. Our next event is vegan cooking with Scott Maslin of EastEnders fame, which is on Monday the 29th. And then Peter, I think, is our next speaker, who's going to talk about Stevenson Way, the railway engineer, and the possible route, a walking route from Camden Town through all the new developments. And that's I think that's the 21st of April. So look out for notices and posters, and look forward to seeing you all again.
Thank you, Doro.
Thanks, Doro.
Thank you.
Bye.
Doro, thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.